So, what year were you born?
1923.
Mm-hmm. And where did you grow up?
Poplar, E14. London, E14.
And what were you interested in aircraft when you were younger?
No. I was more interested in ships. My dad was in the Navy in the First War, so I really wasn't really interested in aircraft at all.
Did your father talk about his time in the Navy?
Yeah, not much, but we knew that he was in the Navy, yeah. He was a chief petty officer or something in the Navy in the First War.
And what age did you leave school?
14.
And what do you remember which school you went to?
Yes, I went to St Leonard's Road School till I was 11, and from 11 I went to Haycurry School in Haycurry Street, Poplar, 14. Yeah.
And when you were at school, did you hear at all about Hitler?
Not really. I learned about Hitler that when I was about 13 or 14, we used to, like in the East End, there was lots of wharfs and places, and there'd be little ships come with people in them from Germany, bringing goods to England and that. And we'd talk to the people, and they'd tell us what they thought about it, and they used to tell us all stories of how wonderful he was and all that. But no, Hitler was never... the black shirts, we had, in the East End, we had lots of black shirts at that time, you know. I used to sell a paper every... and push it. They used to be selling these papers. I forget the name of the paper, but they used to sell a black shirt paper on Saturday nights. But no, as children, Hitler didn't really. And Mosley, people didn't like Mosley very much, so it didn't resound very much. The unions, if you think of it, my mother's uncles and that were all in the dockers, and they worked in the unions, and the unions was the big thing then when I was little. Yeah. And that's when they had their marches in the East End and all that business. I can remember all that, really. But it went over my head. I was a bit too young to appreciate it.
And do you remember the Munich Agreement?
Yes. That was sort of the Munich Agreement. People were worried. See, some of the boys got called up. You know, they were going to call them up for 6 months, and I suppose I was about 16 then. And but the boys who were 18 and that were in the street and on the corner, who we used to talk to, they were a bit worried about being called up for that 6 months and that. Yeah. But they did. They went. They went straight in the army afterwards. They never did their 6 months. They done more than 6 months, didn't they? Yeah. They brought a conscription in for 6 months about that time. Yeah. I can't remember too much about it.
And do you remember the preparations that were being made for war?
No. What I remember is this, that when the war started, everybody was out of work in this little street we lived in. And say the war started in September, but by December, most of them people in the street were in work, working in ships and working on things, you know. Suddenly it all changed. And being a bit of a revolutionary, it struck me that why weren't these people in work before, you know? So it did got the old revolutionary part starting me going, yeah. unfortunately. It shouldn't be that, but it is.
And what was your first job?
My first job was working at a firm called Bobbins, and they made boxes for whiskey and packing cases for tea and all that, and they imported the plywood, cut the plywood to size, done it all up in pals, and put all the bits and sent it out to India and all that business. And they were finished off in India, the cases, right? I got a job there, 19 and 5 pence a week. I remember it. I was unloading these on a little wharf. It was unloading these bales of plywood. Like you'd get 2 bales of plywood on a trolley, and you know. So a barge would come in with 1,000 bat, and about 10 kids would unload that and put it in the. Then when they unloaded it, a lorry would come with all the sheet metal to stamp the edges out with, and the kids would unload that. See? And then we'd work on the presses. The gentleman we'd stamp, and we'd catch all the stuff behind the press and put it in. So that's the sort of job. And it was a tough job because all these kids, if you work with a lot of young people, it's a little bit of king of the, and you have to really stand your corner. And it's very difficult at first, but you get used to it.
And do you remember how you felt when the war started?
I can't really say, no. My mother was upset about it. My mother, she'd lived through the First War, and she realised what was going to happen and things, you know. So she was more upset, really, than that, yeah. And we lived with my grandmother for years and years. And when I was about 14, my dad got a little house, and for us, and we moved, and he decorated the house, and we moved in this house. But we only lived in this house about six or 7 months before the bombers came. I suppose perhaps 2 years, and they came and blew the house up. So that's what happened. Yeah.
And do you remember when hearing about Dunkirk?
No, not really. Dunkirk never. I'm not saying that it did, but probably it did more down here because they were involved in it. But up in when we lived in London, it didn't respond that much. No. Churchill, he made all these speeches, you know, shoot them on the beaches and all that business. And we heard them speeches, but they were quite resounding speeches, weren't they?
And what do you think of Churchill?
Oh yes, I wouldn't say we liked. You see, at the time, where we lived was a bit of a Labour stronghold, you know, and we didn't like the Tories, and we didn't like Chamberlain much at all. Yeah. Unfortunately, because in the end he was he did try his best, but unfortunately, and then Churchill took over, didn't he? But it was a bit like that because that guy who was Lord Halifax. That's right. He wanted more or less he to give in, wasn't he? And the king would have given in as well. And so it wasn't. They weren't all as we think they are. But you did get that feeling. But at the time, I was non-political at all. So it didn't make no difference. and I wasn't in a trade union, and I didn't believe it. You see, all the people in the East End, they worked in the docks and all things like this, and they were all in trade unions and all, weren't they? But when you were my age at the time, about 16 or 17, it goes over your head, doesn't it, really? All right?
Yeah.
Have you got it?
Yeah. Is the... Do you remember when the Luftwaffe began launching its first raids on Britain?
Yes. Yes. I can remember walking down to, because they raided the docks, see, and you could, in the daylight raids, you could see the bombs dropping. You know that. I'm not, I'm not saying that. Well, that's what I thought we could. Yeah, and these planes would come in and drop these bombs. But we had all these barrage balloons all over the place. You know, that's my biggest thing about it. I don't remember seeing much the fighters. We used to go camping before the war, and we used to come down to, I'm trying to think of a place, it's about halfway. So during the war, we got our bikes and we was going to go down there, but the police wouldn't let us go any further. They wouldn't let us go to where we wanted to go. We got to Rootham Hill, and they wouldn't let us go no further. They had a barrier there. They said unless we had a reason to go, that we couldn't. You know, we said we want to go camping. They said no, we can't do that. But that's when the bombing and that. I suppose they were worried about people moving. You know, agents moving along.
Did you have an air raid shelter where you lived?
Yes, we dug it in the garden. You know, but one of them bolted it all together.
Did you ever need to use it?
Oh yes, yeah, we used it. My mother and them, the bombing really affected them, and they went down to Worcester. So I stayed in the house on my own for a while. But after a while, I thought, well, you miss your mother and you miss your family, so I thought, well, I went down to Worcester to see her. So the people down there took me in, and then I stayed in the house next door where my mother stayed. The people there were very, very nice to me.
How did people seem during the Blitz?
Wow. Nobody was really frightened, but they just wanted to make sure they didn't get caught. But you know, when all them guns and all the shrapnel was dropping and things, they were just a little bit worried. That's all, but not else. No. The Blitz was the people took it very reasonably calmly. You know, stoic is the word, isn't it? Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
And when did you decide to join the Air Force?
Oh, I didn't. When I was just 18, see, and I wanted to join the Navy. So I went to this place. My mother was at Worcester, so I went to the place at Worcester to join. There's all the services joined. So the man said, sit down, and they're busy in the Navy. So a man came out from the Air Force and said, what are you sitting there for? So I said, oh, I'm going to join the Navy. He said, why not join the Air Force? So he said, I said, I don't want to join the Air Force, I want to fly. I said, oh, we can fix that. So they sent me up to London, and I had an interview at the Air Ministry with a couple of air marshals, and they sat around a big table and asked lots of questions. Then they said, right, we'll accept you for training. So that's it. So, and then I went to Oh, the zoo. You know, just by the zoo there. And,
Regent's Park, is it?
yes, in a block of flats, and we were in this block of flats, and that's how it started. And then they sent me up to St Andrews.
So, did you originally want to be in the Fleet Air Arm?
No, not really. That never struck me any, not at all. I would have been a sailor, just like my dad. You know what I mean? That's all I wanted to be. Yeah. Is there something wrong?
No, the dog's just going for a walk.
Oh.
Did your dad want you to join the Navy?
No, my dad never said very much at all. Unfortunately, I think perhaps he should have said more to me, but he never said much. He never ever told me how to do this or gave me advice or anything. No. My dad was a very gentle sort of man. I think he'd had enough of it, you know, so he didn't want to get involved in it.
And what did your mother think of you being in the Air
No,
Force?
my mother was different. My mother never objected to what I was doing, but my mother thought that the war wasn't something to be. My mother knew the consequences of what was happening. My mother was a realist, perhaps, yeah. My father was a dreamer.
And can you tell me a bit more about the training you went through?
Oh yes, I went to St Andrews and done a bit of drill and with mathematics and things like that, navigation and all that business. And from there, I went to Lucas. That's just outside Dundee, and you had to. They took you. You had to fly these Tiger Moths, see, and they give you 10 hours, and you had to go solo in 10 hours. Then they assessed you and everything. Then I went back to Manchester in a park. They put us in this Heaton Park and in a tent and in Heaton Park, and they valued us and done all things. Then they decided what you be. See? So they sent me out to Calgary. They sent me up to Scotland, and I got on the Queen Mary, and we went to New York. And we got on a train and went up through the states there to Moncton, New Brunswick, and from there we got another train and went right across to Calgary. And I went just outside Calgary to a little town called High River, where I had to fly these Tiger Moths.
Do you remember the first time you flew one?
Oh yeah, I flew them in Scotland first. See, you had to do it. If you didn't solo in so many, they give you so long that they said, right, are you unsuitable as a pilot? See? No, you only got so long. You know that, don't you? You do know that they had a system like that. Yeah?
And how did it feel the first time you were in control of the plane?
Oh, you've done what you was asked. Do you know what I mean? They took you up and you've done all these spins and things like that. Yeah. I'll tell you what. If you go up and on a cloudy day, that's the nicest part. You go through the clouds and are you a pilot? You go through the clouds and suddenly it's all different, you know. It's a different world.
And how were the instructors?
Oh, very good. Very good. I can't moan about any of it at all. And yeah, and I went from High River into Calgary, and we flew these Cessna planes. Yeah, Cessnas they were, 2-engine things, and so you had to do circuits and bumps and flying over. You had to go up countries all over the mountains and things, over the Rockies. That was a holiday, really. They put us on the train and we come back, and I went on the Queen Mary and come back on the Queen Elizabeth. So really it was a luxury tour.
You said you were interested in ships. Was it a privilege to be on the Queen's?
What?
You said that you were interested in ships when you were younger. Was it?
Oh, it was super. Yeah, and on top of that, when I was going out on the Queen Mary, if you helped in the kitchen, you got extra food and all things like so. You helped in the kitchen, and it was different, and you could stand right on the front of the ship when it was going right across the Atlantic. Yeah, it was an absolute different thing.
And what year was it that you finished your training?
I would think it's 41 or something like 42 or something. Yeah. That's what I think.
Can you tell me a little bit about the medical test they gave you for the pilots?
The medical test?
The medical test to see if you were fit for flying.
Oh, what can I tell you about them? They just you had the biggest test was blowing in this thing. You had to keep the mercury up at a certain level, and it tests your lungs or something. Yeah, you had to keep blowing it, and they test your heart at the same time. But that's the one thing that used to worry me more than anything on the tests. Yeah, you had to do the mercury. It had to be the right height. Yeah. I don't know what that test is. Do you have that test now?
I'm not sure. Probably. And did you hear about what was happening elsewhere in the war?
Well, when I was at Lord's, that's when America came in the war, 1941, yeah. And it was a bit different, I suppose. But no. When we went across the Atlantic with the Queen Mary, because they was always on the lookout for these submarines and that, it zigzagged all the way over there. And when you had big seas, the propellers come right out of the water, and the whole ship shakes and it goes back in and that. It's very, very good. And when we went in New York Harbour to see the Statue of Liberty and all that, and we went on a berth, and next door was the Normandy, and they had caught fire and fell over in the dock, hadn't they? See, so yeah.
And is there anything else you remember about travelling on the Queen's?
Not really. The crew on the Queen was very nice. I would think that coming back was a bit different to going. A bit more. There was probably more passengers. That we had loads of American troops on and coming back. Yeah. So going out there, we had lots of Navy guys. They were going to pick a cruiser up that was out in the shipyards in America, or a couple of crews, yeah.
And what happened when you disembarked from the Queen Elizabeth?
The Queen Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm.
When we came back home. I don't know. Forget now.
It's fine, it's fine.
I'm trying to think where I went. I'm trying to think. I thought I got a feeling I went to Harrogate. I'm sure sure I went to somewhere in Harrogate. From there, yeah. And that's where they put you in different places.
So, when were you sent to the Bomber Command Squadron?
I would reckon it would be about 43, something like that, yeah. I didn't do many operations. I went to Hamburg and I went to the Ruhr, but I went as a co-pilot so I could see what it was like, you know what I mean? So they sent me to Hamburg and the Ruhr. I went to Hamburg in a Wellington, and I went to the Ruhr in a Lancaster. But I don't remember. I might have done a couple more, but I don't remember them. I can remember those two because they the first time I saw all this ack come up, them banging up in there. It's sort of surrealistic. You can't hear it, you know. You can see it, but you can't hear it. You can't hear the bangs up in the air. You can feel it, but you just see all these shells that bursting up in there.
And so were you serving as a flight engineer at this point?
What?
Were you a flight engineer at this point?
A flight engineer?
Yes.
No, I was a pilot.
Okay.
Oh. They had a flight engineer, yeah. His job was to make sure all the tanks were all that business, yeah. Have I said wrong?
No.
That's the train. It's a train.
Oh, it was a train, sorry. I thought it was a sound on the... Sorry, it was a sound.
There's a little train, yeah.
Okay.
Have you finished?
No, I was just looking at my next question, that's all. What did you... where exactly was your squadron based?
At Tottenham. It was from another drone. I'm trying to think of the other drone. The Americans took over the drone in the end. But it was round an old RAF drone, you know. But Tottenham was one of the satellites. And it was in Suffolk, yeah. I've never been back there, but it was on the outskirts of Newmarket. The Earl of something was in charge of the squadron, but probably it was me. I didn't do it right.
And which squadron were you in?
90 Squadron. Yeah. Oh, I know the squadron and everything. Yeah.
And when did you first meet the crew you would be flying with?
Well, they changed the mid-upper gunner and they changed the navigator. But the others, I don't know. I met them all there. I don't remember that. I can't remember that, to be honest. It's gone. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. That's fine.
You can't remember everything, can you?
So what's your opinion of Wellington bombers?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Nothing wrong with them. Why? They're made of aluminium bits of pipe all put together with a fabric over the top of it, and geodetic construction, isn't it? And so that they can have a bash and it won't affect the plane, or it will. It can carry on after being knocked, a shell go through it or something, yeah.
And what did you think of Lancasters?
Oh, yeah, yes, very good. Luckily, I didn't have much chance to have a go at them, Stirling is the thing that I got in trouble with. I remember that once I went to the south of France with some mines, and they said don't drop them unless you can actually pinpoint exactly where to go. But the navigator I had couldn't pinpoint a place to put them in. So we brought them back, and they went mad. You know, they were a bit upset. I think I went on a charge over that. They got me in trouble over it. But they told us not to do it. You know what I mean? If they tell you not to do something, you won't do it, will you? Perhaps we should have broke radio silence and asked for more instruction. But I know they was upset, and they cleared the airport. When we landed, they really cleared it all. Everybody was gone. They thought the plane might blow up as it landed.
So were they able to remove the mines safely?
They got them out, yeah. But they had a lot of trouble. Caused a lot of trouble. Caused me a lot of trouble as well.
And didn't they call that gardening?
Huh?
Didn't they call it gardening when they were deploying
Yeah,
mines?
yeah. Oh, it's supposed to be easy, yeah. All these things are supposed to be easy, but they're not. They're just as hard as all that. It doesn't matter. I know that maybe you got more ack and things like that on the other things, but you got just as much trouble. I mean, with that, you could follow the other planes. You could see them. I mean, the other bit, you're on your own. You've got nobody to go by. You've got no. I mean, if you're on one of these big raids, you can see all the other planes. You can see the targets and the things. Yeah, it's different when you're flying on your own. It's completely black, and yeah. So it's it's more a test on your it's on your nerves, isn't it, really? Because before you were all worked up, you're going to do it, and it don't matter whether they throw the world at you. That don't make any difference. But if you're on your own and it's quiet, you can get lost in your emotions as well.
And what's your general opinion of Stirling bombers?
Oh, I think that, you know, that they chopped the wings off it, don't they? And that's where it went wrong, really. They should have left the wings on. And then it would probably have been very successful. Because them old Bristol engines were very good. Yeah.
When you were flying a Stirling, how did it compare to a Lancaster?
Well, it don't matter. You had more power probably with the Lancaster. You had the engines, you know, the old you had inline engines. The only thing is that if you get flak or anything, it could make hole in, and you'd lose your glycol or something, and then bugger the engine up, wouldn't it? Whereas them Bristol engines, you could lose the cylinder and they still work. Yeah. Oh, there's this. They did fit them Bristols in length twos, didn't they? Yeah.
So did you like the Stirling?
Yeah, well, it's what I probably didn't have enough experience to like or dislike. That's the truth.
And as the pilot, what were your responsibilities?
Oh, I was in charge of the crew. See, unfortunately, and you accept that responsibility. Yeah, it's a difficult responsibility, but you accept the responsibility. You've got to. How can you walk and be in charge of the aircraft? I know that the navigator was a pilot officer, but it didn't make any difference, did it? When I was once we got in that aircraft, I was in charge of the aircraft. He did what I asked him to do. Nobody. He didn't take over the plane or anything like that. He did so anybody, if you're a pilot, if you take an air marshal with you, he's got to do what you ask him to do. See? That's the scheme.
And what was the procedure for takeoff?
Huh?
What was the procedure for takeoff?
Oh, you had to know all this. You know that you have to know all the different bits. And you have the special sort of thing that you have to say to yourself, and you've got to do all these different bits and check everything, check this, check that, check that. Then you're ready to take off. But you have a checklist, yeah.
And did you have to memorise the checklist?
Yes, for each plane, see? Whatever plane you were flying, you had a checklist, and you. Admittedly, they was basically the same for all planes, but you still had a itemised thing for each plane. Yeah. And they still do it today, don't they? They got a little. They have it all written down now, don't they? And they do it, but they never let us write it down in the Air Force. We had to memorise it. And we had to sign the Form 400 or something, wasn't it? We took over the plane in good condition. We're supposed to inspect the plane before. So when you go out to the plane, the chief man who's been looking, a mechanic looking after it, they give you a form, and he's been over, and you have to walk around the plane and check the plane. And Form 400, you have to sign it, say that the plane was in good working nick when you took over. So you have to look at the wheels. That's what you're supposed to do.
How did the briefings work before the raids?
I can't really say you got a lot of briefing. I did go to the briefings. They would tell you what to look out for, and what was going to happen, and that's all. And when we went on this, they did give us a lot of briefing when we went to the SOE things. They gave us very, very little briefing. When we came back, they gave us more briefing, debriefing than we got before we left.
And what were the rations that you had in the Air Force?
What?
What rations did you have in the Air Force?
What?
Your rations in the Air Force.
Rations?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we had quite good rations, eggs and bacon and stuff like that, People like that sort of food, don't they? Quick food. Yes, the food was quite good. Yes, and sort of we lived in sort of primitive places, them nissen huts, with a bit of fire in it. But we all slept in the same place, the crew, or we all slept together. We lived together in a little hut. So everybody knew everybody about what was going on. Yeah.
Was there a strong friendship between you all?
Yeah, reasonable. Yeah, there was stronger friendships between one or two people, but mostly yes, reasonable friendship between everybody. I think the ladies, the girlfriends and that, they all got together and they were friends as well. Yeah.
And what did you do to entertain yourselves?
Oh, not much. I think we did drink a bit and that, but not much. Because there wasn't very strong beer then, was there? The beer was. That was probably where we would go and entertain ourselves, dancing and things like that, dances. But there wasn't much to do.
And what did you think of Arthur Harris?
Oh, well, everybody loved him, see? Everybody loved Mr. Harris, yeah. Air Marshal. He was more an uncle, wasn't he, really? We were his children, weren't we? Really, so that's how it was, yeah.
And can you describe the first time you flew the Stirling?
I was what?
The first time you flew the Stirling, could you describe it?
Yeah. It was one of these conversion units, you know. You went from flying Wellington, so you went to a conversion unit and they put you on either Lancasters or Stirling, see. I went and, I'm trying to think, it was Ratton Common or somewhere like that down where I had a conversion unit. And that's where when they had one of these 1,000 raids on Hamburg, we was flying Wellingtons then, and they sent us over. We had to do a raid there on. They took every plane that was available, like, you know, because they wanted to make 1,000 bomber raids, didn't they? So they took them all from these conversion units. They bombed them up and took them over there. So we went on that. Yeah, Ratting Common, I'm sure it was Ratting Common, somewhere. It's in Suffolk there somewhere, isn't it? Yeah, near I forget where it is, but it is there somewhere on it, Ratting Common. I'm sure that that's where we flew then. Stirling.
And were you on the 1,000 bomber raid to Cologne?
No, Hamburg. I went, yeah. There was 1,000 bomber on Hamburg, wasn't there, at the same time? Roughly around about that, yeah. No, that's the one I went on.
Was that your first?
I don't know, it might have been, yeah. Might have been. I know that I went with another squadron to the Ruhr, you know, but they were Tudden was an outpost for some other drone. I'm trying to think of it, and they were in the main drone. They were Lancasters, and they went out to the Ruhr, and I went out with them as a co-pilot.
Were the raids on cities any different from the Ruhr, or did they feel the same?
Well, see, when you went on a raid, the Pathfinders went in and dropped these flares, and you dropped the bombs on the flares. You know what I mean? Whatever flare, they told you what colour you was going to drop your bombs on, and you used that colour. That's the idea. The Pathfinders marked the target, and you went out and dropped the bombs on where they marked it.
Do you remember, was there a specific target you were given for raids?
What?
Were you given a specific target for raids?
Of events?
A target? Or was it just general area you would bomb?
No, we were given specific colours. You know, they dropped different colours flares. We were given specific colours. You know? So they'd say that your target is the red, or is a bomb on the red. And they over the target, the Pathfinder would come on the radio and say where the bombs were dropping. They're dropping too far to the south, and you have to drop them a bit to the north, or so many degrees, and they tell you which was which. Then Pathfinders went low and see where the bombs were dropping. See, and so they had mosquitoes that went down. See, that were fast enough to go down and look at it and go up again. See, and so they gave you instructions on where you was going to drop the bombs.
And could you actually see anything below, or was it just cloud?
Huh?
Could you see anything below you, or was it just cloud?
No, you could see all the you could see the targets, you know, when they were on fire and all that. Yeah, you could see, and even when the SOE, you flying over there, you could see all down below, because you could see different tanks moving about and things like that on the ground, and you could see different bits of what they were doing. Yeah. Oh, we know. I mean, you're only about 8,000 or 9,000 feet, so you could see everything. You know, there's nobody up. You're not up at 10,000, and that's as high as we were going, wasn't it? Really. See, we didn't. Now everybody goes up a bit higher, don't they? But in them days, we used to have oxygen, but we didn't use it very. Yeah.
Do you ever have problems with the oxygen supplies?
No, not really. We didn't use it that much, but we did use it when we went to the Ruhr and places like that. We were higher there to get there and that. But probably came down a bit when we was dropping the bombs. Then we went up again. Probably because you want to see where where the flares were on the floor, didn't you? Did they drop all these different coloured? The Pathfinders had markers, didn't they? That's the idea of it. It was a good idea, wasn't it? Really, because you could pick the right target then. Whereas half the time. Up until about 1942, 3/4 of the bombs were dropped in different places, weren't they? Blokes used to go out there and drop a lot and come back, didn't they? And they never had a photograph. They didn't take a photograph of what they were dropping or anything like that. But in there, they got cameras and they could work out exactly the target and everything, couldn't they? So up until about 1943, 3/4 of the bombs weren't dropped on the right targets, were they? But that's what history tells you, anyway.
Could you ever see the fires below you?
Not really, no.
And during your training, had you been taught how to corkscrew the plane as an evasive manoeuvre?
What what if a fighter was coming on?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we were taught that, yeah, a bit, but not much. Not much. We would, I don't know, we would, I forget now. We'd have to corkscrew it like this a bit, yeah, to try and put them off. When I was, the fighters used to come from underneath. See, the Germans, they got a cannon somewhere that they could fire underneath. So that was a big trouble, wasn't it, really? Because the Americans had a turret underneath, didn't they? But we never had a turret underneath, did we? So the underside of the bomber was always easy target, wasn't it, really? Yeah.
What was the procedure for dropping the bombs?
Oh, the bomber was in charge. He told you what to do. That's the main thing. I mean, you might moan and say, "Come on, hurry up," but that's what you said, didn't you? If the bomb owner was there, like when we was dropping them good stuff for the Naki, you had to line up exactly, and you'd say, "Come on, hurry up and get it online and let's get rid of it." And we took spies and things like that out there, but we weren't allowed to see them. They got in the plane after you got in the plane. You got in the plane and you're ready to take off. Then the spies would jump in. You never saw them. You had never had anything to do with them. See, so, and they weren't. They were people to work with the Mackie, you know. Or the French resistance. Yeah. I know I say the Mackie, but that's what they called the French resistance then, didn't they? You must be finished now.
Just a few more, if that's okay.
Yeah, come on, it's time.
Sorry. Did anyone ever get? Did you talk much on the to each other during the raids?
Not really. You might speak to the gunners or someone, you know, and wake up lads or something like that. That's about all. You didn't speak much on it at all.
And what was the procedure when you were returning to your aerodrome?
What? How do you mean?
Coming into land.
What?
When you were coming into land.
Oh, then you had to. Yes, they give you the okay to land, and I forget now. I forget all that. But yes, you have to learn all these. You have to. You learn that right from the beginning. You know, if when you're training, you have to. It's the same procedure that you have to for landing your plane when you're training. As yeah, they could give you the okay to land. Yeah. You don't talk too much because they did have German fighters used to come and listen to. They'd probably come in and try and shoot the planes when they were landing. That was the idea anyway. So you kept quiet as possible.
Were you ever on any raids to Berlin?
What?
Were you ever on raids to Berlin?
No. Unfortunately, I wasn't much good to the Air Force, so I'm sure of that. But unfortunately, it's what happens to you, isn't it? You know, I never found out till years afterwards that they were waiting when I went there. And that's because that Bletchley Park scene, they knew that that the Mackie had been compromised. But they couldn't say because D-Day wasn't very far away, and they didn't want the Germans to alter their codes or anything like that. So they let us go, and I think in a way they couldn't have stopped us really. It wouldn't have been right, would it? But that's what I think. And the next night, somebody else lost. They sent another plane to deliver stuff to the Mackie, and for the Squadron sent another plane, and they lost it the next night. Yeah.
And how did you come to be involved in the SOE?
Huh?
How did you come to be involved with the
Oh.
SOE?
Well, it's nothing to do with you. You're told what to do. Oh, they tell you what you've got to do. And bombing raids was on, but when it wasn't a bombing raid, they had these SOE, and they give you SOE to get you experience of being looking after things and that. But it's it come unstuck. They really were waiting for us. It was all fixed up. That the Mackie had been compromised by the Gestapo, and they knew when we was going to arrive and that. So it was a fixed thing, unfortunately. But nobody told us about it. Nobody said anything about it after the war. Nobody let you know about it all. And it was only people who looked at it. I've seen that I'd be 80 odd when they found out the truth. That's a long time, isn't it?
What was the procedure for bailing out?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Probably I'd be the last one out. What? The captain would be the last one out. But, how did I get saved? I don't know. I remember seeing all this like tracer stuff coming in, but the next minute, bomb, it was gone. 1 minute I see all this, and probably the tracers came into the cockpit and blew me out of the cockpit. So I got burned. I got all my arms burned, and my legs burned, and my face burned. So it must have been a big fire, mustn't it, in the cockpit? Yeah. I don't know. I must have gone out and into the river. I fell in the river Loire, and they pulled me out the river. Luckily, the river put the fire out. But the hairs have never grown on my legs. Because look, my legs have got no hairs on them. Look. See, they all got burnt off. The skin got burnt off, same as this one. Both of them. They're both up, you know, right, look, they've got no hairs on the front. There's hairs on the back, there's none on the front. So the shells must have come in about there, see? All right?
Yeah.
Okay, finished?
Almost.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for coming.
No, he's not quite finished. A few more minutes.
What have I done?
No,
Nothing. I was just waiting for the clock. That's all. So.
It's 10 o'clock.
No, I was just waiting for the clock to stop striking. That's all.
All right.
Did you wake up in hospital?
No, I woke up, yes, in a French hospital. And they took me to a French hospital. But in this French hospital, they wouldn't look at me. So they put me in another thing and took me to Paris, to another hospital in Paris. It was a German hospital. Well, it was a French hospital, but the Germans were running it. Run by the German Air Force. So that's where I went. But I'm trying to point a cliche. It's one of the outskirts of Paris, isn't it? Point a cliche, yeah. I'm sure this hospital was the hospital cliche.
And when were you taken to the prison camp?
Well, I would reckon about 5 weeks after that. 5 or 6 weeks after that, yeah. And what I was saying, they put us on a train, and I think it would be about just D-Day or before D-Day. See, because in the hospital, some of these lads from the parachute regiment came in, and they would land in before D-Day to take certain objectives, and they landed in the wrong place, so they got them, and there's 1 or 2 was brought into the hospital. But when they were brought in, we were sent out. So I would think that this all happened in April, so by June, May, June, about 6 weeks, I was ready to come out. Yeah. So they sent me out just before D-Day. Well, it might have been D-Day, something like that. I know it was all, when we went to the station, it was all the ferment, you know, all the ladies. We got in this truck, and we said to this German who was driving the truck, we've never seen Paris, so he said, right, and he took us all around all the places, you know, and then he took us to the railway station, and at the railway station all the ladies there were making a fuss of us and everything, and they got all niggly and they said, get out of the way, and they put us on this train, and off we went into, and there was old boys looking after us, elderly gentlemen, like people about 60 in the German army. And most of the guards were in the camps were all about 60, but they had what they called ferrets in these camps, and they were younger fellas, but they all spoke. Cockney English and things like that. They'd been living in England and gone back to Germany, like, you know. So you had to be very careful of the ferrets, but they were all right. But yeah, you know, you could play them at their own game. That's the only way. Yeah, they were listening to what you said and everything.
What was everyday life like in the camp?
Oh, there were lots of people in there. You make friends with everybody, don't you? In the room you live in, you know, I was in them sort of bunk beds, you know, them bunk beds like, and you have like they give you a bag, like a bag. They're going to bury you in that bag, like a big potato sack, you know, but a big one. And the thing is that what we did, we got that big odd blanket or two, and we tie them in round the outside of the bag, inside the bag, and we'd slide in there, and we'd have a blanket inside and a bit of that stuff on the outside. So, and we slept in this bag they gave us.
What did you do to pass the time?
Make all sorts of things, you know, from bits of tin, like, you know, but people would make radios, and there was a load of guys that made radios, and they used to come round and say, they give you the news every now and then, see, they'd listen to the BBC or somewhere like that, and they'd come back with the news, because the German news wasn't reliable, was it? No. Well, it was, but it was slanted their way, wasn't it, really? We wanted news slanted our way. Right. Well, that's, yeah. We had people that used to listen and come round and tell you what it was. But we play cards and different things, all the different things we do. But I probably wasn't very well then, you know, and my arm was, at the time, this arm, like, see, I had some infection I got my hands burnt, see, and some infection went in there, and these great big lumps come up. So they cut these lumps off, and that left a big hole. But also, it meant that the bits that lift your arm up, they shortened, you know, and so I couldn't move that arm. So I used to get a couple of guys to hold this tight and get them to pull it out gradually. You get them, you think, I'm not going to go without my arm. At least I've lost my eye, but you're not going to lose your arm, are you? So that's what I used to do. And I had to do all them things.
And was there anyone who wanted to escape?
What?
Was there anyone you knew who wanted to escape from the camp?
Yes, there was lots of things, but because at Stirling they were digging tunnels and that. But it was all sandy ground. I don't think it was very. Nobody dug any tunnels in the camp. Luft 7 I was in. I don't think many people drive any camp. I'm not sure that anybody got out of the camp I was in while I was there. I was only there a year. So. I don't suppose I was there a year. I was there about, I think I would be there from about June to about February, you know, because then the Russians were coming, weren't they? So we had to leave Poland, because I was in a camp near Auschwitz, not far from Auschwitz. But we never knew what was going on in Auschwitz. Yeah. But we were in them boxcars just the same, and they put us in sidings, and they all had dogs and everything. When we come to Lukenwald, when we got on the train, when they put us in Lukenwald camp, that's where they were all. They had all the gear there to gas in there and all that business. When we went to showers, they were all great big doors on the showers and everything. See? But they never did. They never gassed us. No. But they had all the facilities there.
Did you hear about the Great Escape at Stirling?
No. I think we did hear something about it, but I don't think it really registered much in the camp I was in. Because, see, there was no officers in the camp. It was all NCOs. It was all non-commissioned officers. So, all flying. They were mostly flying crews. It was a camp just for flying crews. Squadron was for the officers, and where we were at Luft 7 was for the sergeants and all that. But all the officers went to Stirling. I'm sure that's where they went. Bit better. Perhaps they had better conditions and they could do more and they had more idea. But it never happened really much where we were. We were probably, I thought that maybe I was a little bit stood out with one eye and all that, you know. A bit difficult to escape. But people would have you right away, wouldn't they?
What were conditions like in the camp in general?
You got any more? Oh, get us in the camp.
Yeah.
Well, like a camp, you didn't get a lot of food, and you spent most of the time. You spent at least an hour or two, perhaps 2 hours or 3 hours in the morning, every morning, counting. See, because people used to move and they had to get it right, you know, and then so people would move and they'd have people counting you, and they'd make it so that it was so awkward for them to count you that in the end they give up, you know. And so for 1 or 2 people who got away, that's how they covered up for them. You could get away, I think. You could go out on a laundry thing, you know, but we weren't allowed to do any work, see, because we were NCOs. So, but I think people got out on a laundry bit, and a couple got away or 2. Not many got away from the camp, obviously.
So, what was your rank?
Then I was a flight sergeant.
So, were you worried that the Russians would capture you?
Yes. The Russians, when they came, they put a tank and they took all the barbed wire down in the camp and everything, right? And then they said to the Russians, look, come on, you've got to fight. And they took their own prisoners away. And they were going to send us back to Russia for interrogation. Their idea was that there could be spies amongst us. But the Americans, who were close by, sent up a truck to take the American airmen back, because there's American airmen in Luftwaffe as well. So when they came up, we said to them, well, why not take us? So they took so many of the RAF with them. So we were taken back by them. And the Russians were going to stop these trucks, but the Americans said, no, we're going to take our people. So we're lucky the Americans took us back. That's how we came to be liberated. And we got back and we went to Brussels. And from Brussels they flew us back to somewhere, I don't know where it was, somewhere else. Near Oxford it was, somewhere near Oxford. We came to an airport near Oxford. And we went home. I can't remember any of that. I know that I went in hospital at I'm trying to think where I was in hospital. Gosford, I'm sure. No, they sent me to Aylesbury. You know, Mackindoe, he operated at this hospital.
East Grinstead,
Aylesbury,
Queen
yeah.
Victoria Hospital.
No, but he was there in the Victoria, and we were in another one at RAF drone there somewhere. And there was loads of guys having them bits taken out of their arms and sewed in their face and all that business, you know, who got burnt. And they operated on my eye there. Yeah. But I'd been out. I'm sure that I got married before I went there, you know. I'm sure that when I came back, they gave me leave and I came back and got married. I got married in June, and I reckon June the 9th, and you think I was liberated in May, so it was pretty quick.
Did you, when you were in the camp, were you able to send letters back home?
Well, I did, yeah. It's all done by Geneva, isn't it? You know, you have these special letters, you've got to write them. You can't put anything in them. Otherwise, the censor will black them all out and everything, won't they? Yeah. I did write back letters, yeah. But I don't know how many come back. I know how many they got. I think they got 3 or 4 of them, yeah.
So your family knew you'd survived?
Well, that yes, but not for a long time, you know. And I've got to give my mother a full due. She said, no, you'll always come back, she said, like a bad penny, I think. But my mother always thought I'd survive.
And when you were taken from Poland back into Germany, was that all, were you on a train the whole time?
Huh?
Were you taken from Poland to Germany on a train?
We walked. We walked to the River Vistula. I remember crossing the River Vistula. That's in Poland, isn't it? And they were blowing up the bridges as we went across. You know, the old sappers were underneath, and they blew the bridges up as we went up. We got across, and there were some people escaping from the Russian front, and we had to help them. We had a few staff cars. We had to dig out the snow and that. So, yeah. And we got by. And I'm trying to think where they put us in. They put us in boxcars somewhere. Because everybody got a bit upset about that. Because there'd be about 50 or so in a boxcar. And it's a bit crowded. People get a bit upset.
Can you remember much from the long walks that you did?
The long walk, yeah. They took us into these different farms, see? They put you in a farm. We'd walk so long, and there'd be they had farms, like collective farms, and so there were a big farmhouse, and we all slept in the barns and things like that. But I used to try and sleep with the horses, because you get some warmth out of the horses. The only thing is they tread on you and things like that. You have to be careful.
Did anyone get ill?
Huh?
Did anyone get sick during the march?
Yes. Actually, the guards got more sick than we did. Like they were mostly old boys, you see, and the cold got them, and more guards got sick than prisoners, really, because we were mostly young people, and where they were old men, see, and it really took it out of them. I don't know, quite a few got sick and stayed in different places. Like, you walk through these places. I remember once they put us in a cement works, and we had to be, I don't know, this was underneath, it seemed to be all. And another time, they put us in 2 different factories and different places like that as we was walking back.
Did you have enough food during the march?
Not much, no. We didn't have much food at all. But we pinched as much as we could as we walked along, you know. Yeah, there's loads of things. You were walking through the country, see, and you have to become. You can pinch things like sugar beet and things like that. And you'd eat that raw. But I don't know if it done you any good. It's very hard to chew.
Did you think that the war would soon be over?
Well, you've always got to be optimistic, haven't you? When it's no use being pessimistic when you're in that situation. So we always thought we was going to win, but I always thought they was going to win. See, when we was in Paris, in the hospital in Paris, they used to sing, "We're going to hang out the washing on the Siegfried line," you know, and the nurses used to sing that to us, and they thought they was invincible. And I don't think it's any different now. I think they're the same people. I think they'll have us just the same. I mean, look at the trouble we're having with the common market now. Don't think they'll give us anything. They'll always want their pound of flesh. That's what I think, anyway. But maybe you've got a modern view of it, things.
And do you remember when you arrived at Buchenwald?
Yeah, what?
Do you remember when you arrived in Germany itself on the train?
Oh yeah, we went to Stalag Luft. It's I forget now. It's on the outskirts of. It's in the Ruhr, see, Stalag Luft. And when we went there, the RAF had bombed the town before, so the people were they chased us, they were going to hang us. I don't blame them, but they was all upset about being bombed. But luckily, an old boy was in charge of us, and him and Oberfeld Weibel in the German army, and he put us in an air raid shelter, and he put a machine gun on the air raid shelter and said, "Look, these are prisoners that are in my charge. I'm going to look after them." So he looked after us. We got on a tram to go to Stalag Luft, and so it was on a train. But the guard said, "Get off," and they chucked us off the train, off the tram. But so he got us there in the end. And we went to, Stalag Luft. It's an interrogation centre. But, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Stalag Luft, yeah. And before you went to Poland, that was, yeah.
What about when you got back from Poland during the march? You've been in the railway car.
We went to Luckenwald. It's just south of Jitterbug.
Okay.
It's just south of Jitterbug. It's near Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where the Russians came in. So the Russians came into they were coming into Berlin, weren't they? They come and took Berlin, and they were. I think it was south of Berlin where we were, or it might have been north. I don't know. I know we was in the outskirts of Berlin.
Can you remember the morning the Russians arrived?
Yes, really. I told you that they came in with these big tanks and whipped all the barbed wire down, opened the camps up completely. There was a big battle in this wood just outside the camp, not far from the camp, and the Russians had bumped off all these Germans in there. There was stacks of heaps of bodies in the woods. I don't know. I got an idea. We got out and went in the woods because the war was over there. You know, the war wasn't over, but the Russians had liberated, and they'd taken all the Russians away, and they left us and the Americans and some Polish people. So we thought that we were going to be transported back to Russia, but as I say, the Americans come up and took us away.
How did the Russian guards actually react to when they met you?
Oh, that was very good. No problem at all. I can remember they came, when they came, all they came in like horses and carts and everything. You know, I know the troops went for a bomb, like the attack people, but then the people behind them that came in had horse and carts and things like that. And I remember one of these horse and carts came through and we said, we've got no water. And they said, oh, we couldn't understand the language. So they gave us a drink and they gave us a glass of vodka to drink. I can remember drinking it, yeah.
And is there anything else you can tell me about the train journey from Poland to Germany?
From
when you were in the cattle trucks?
then what?
You were in the cattle trucks.
Ah. Well, it was, what do you want to know about it?
What were the conditions like aboard the train?
Oh, it was really not very nice because a load of guys wanted to go to the loo and things like that, and they couldn't go to the loo, and they slid the doors open and somebody held them while they went to the loo. You know what I mean? It was really horrendous. It was, and all the guys were kicking up the dust in there. You know. But when we got out of this other place, just like you see them, they all had dogs and they'd all lined up, and before we got in the camp to Luckenwald, yeah, marched us all in there.
And what were conditions like in Luckenwald?
Very cramped, so. But it was more organised because there was more squaddies in there, you know, and the squaddies got more organised and that. It was an organised camp. And there was a Polish bit and a bit there, and you could get out of the bit you was in and get into the Polish bit and talk to all the Polish lads, you know. And then you'd get back in your own bit. But yeah, and like every morning you had to wash under a cold pump. There wasn't many. The washing facilities were pumps out right there, and pump the water up. You had to wash in cold water, and it was really cold. You know what I mean? And you had all these lice and that. You had to all the lice come out of the floorboards in this place because it had been an old camp for a long while, and so you had to get your shirt off and delouse it, and you had to have a wash and everything, otherwise these things would run all over you. It wasn't very pleasant. How long was there? I don't know how long was there. But I know that's where the Germans used to let us wash in the showers. That's right, in this place. Every now and then they'd arrange for us to have a hot shower, you know, about once a month or so. That would get rid of all this rubbish and that. And I told you, these big showers had great big doors and everything. So really, they were really gas chambers, really. But it was... you didn't care then. Things were going to get better or worse, so you got to accept it. You get in a mood where you accept things.
How did you feel when you heard that Germany had surrendered?
Well, when these Americans took us and in the truck, but all these places is all this kaput and all that business, and all the places were on fire. And we drove through all this south of Berlin and all that. Lots of towns were all in bits, so it was rubble. It's like the Middle East today. That's what it was. You know, it's similar to that. I forget lots of it, don't forget. It's a long time ago. You asked me to remember 70 odd years ago. I can't remember what happened yesterday. So 70 odd years is a long time.
You've done very well, thank you. Is there anything that you want to add at all about your RAF service at all?
No, not really. But my RAF crew.
Yeah.
Well, you feel guilty. You know, I was responsible for all these people, and they all got killed. And it does affect you. When you think of it, I was the captain of the aircraft, and so therefore they were really. I should have perhaps looked after them more, but I didn't get the chance. But you feel that, don't you? Thanks very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I can't remember all that well.
That's fine. You've done brilliantly. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks very much.
First time.